Hi.
All right. Raya, go ahead. Introduce the show for tonight.
I don't know what we're doing.
Then why are you here?
Because you told me to be here.
No, I asked you if you wanted to be.
And I said, yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. Introduce the show.
My name is Raya.
What are we going to talk about tonight? We could.
The Houthis.
We could talk about the Houthis. But we're going to start with the court case of the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice in the Hague. I think somebody graciously told me they also say The Hague in English. Can you believe I've been saying, I haven't been sure of how to say this in English. I've been saying, because I'm hearing it so much in other languages. So
Who do you see who's watching?
I don't know how to see who's watching because, hi Raya. Emily said hi Raya.
And
Oh
I
my
can't
gosh.
see anything.
We could barely see. Here, let's try to make this bigger.
Oh, hi, Raya. Talk about the court.
Make this bigger. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Emily. I wasn't sure because in Hebrew, and we were listening to the Israeli news, they're saying the Chag. And so, anyway, I wasn't so sure. But anyway, thank you for joining. So today yesterday I presented,
She also said hug.
she says Hague.
Hague.
Yeah. So yesterday, South Africa presented its petition before the International Court of Justice about why Israel should be accused of genocide and the war with Hamas should be stopped immediately. Let me shut the annoying email. Thought it was
Can they
shut.
still see?
I think they can. So today was Israel's turn to defend itself. So yesterday, South Africa, they presented their application, which was like 80. It's 83 pages long. In it, they used words, very charged words, such as hurting, like accusing Israel of hurting the Palestinians from place to place. Um, Concentration camp. They used the word concentration camp. They used the word extermination in their arguments yesterday. And today was Israel's turn to defend itself against these charges. And watching actually the Israeli news right now, and Israel believes that it did a good job of defending itself and saying no, and saying anyway, presenting its case. So just tell you about a little bit about the case from today, which we actually watched for the full 3 hours. They had it. So, okay, so Israel said basically their argument was that South Africa failed to prove that genocide, that they are committing genocide, and they also accused them of cheapening the word. They in their first person that presented arguments as from the foreign ministry, and he sort of gave an overall summary of the Israeli case, and they pointed out that. Okay, see you later. Yeah. So they said that he pointed out that Saturday, October 7th was a Jewish religious holiday. It was Simchat Torah. It was the end of the week of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles holiday. And most people were, not only was it Shabbat, which is a day of rest, and people aren't always um, doing anything, like there's no driving. A lot of people, observant Jews, won't be using phones, and they wouldn't, some people didn't even know what was happening in full until the end of the day on October 7th. But they used a religious holy day to attack. They Hamas invaded 20 communities of civilians, and a music festival. They openly displayed elation as they tortured children in front of parents and parents in front of children. They systematically raped, mutilated women, children, men, people with disabilities. They executed, they sexually abused, and they took captive 250 people, not just Israelis, actually. There were a couple dozen citizens of other countries. There's also dual citizens among the Israelis, but also citizens like, from Thailand and other countries. What? Going to sleep. Let me know if you want to come back. So he, in light of the fact that the court would not allow them to play some of the atrocities on video, like they didn't allow them to run the video of some of the atrocities. Tal Becker explained some of them or described some of what happened. And he did play also a recording of a Palestinian who from Gaza who had crossed into Israel, who called his parents and said very excitedly, "I killed 10 Jews. Dad, I killed 10 Jews. You should be so proud of me. Put Mom on the phone. Mom, I killed 10 of them with my own hands." And he played this on, for the court with the English translation. So he says that actually, like, between that and Hamas's own charter and own officials who have threatened to do something like this again, and the charter which calls for the ethnic cleansing of Jews from this area, from Palestine, they say that if anything, the genocide charge should be reversed. It should be put on Hamas rather than on Israel. So then they had other arguments presented. I'm scrolling down to pick through a few of them. They said that the applicant's filing was distorted. It presented a distorted view of events and was manipulative. They noted that school, instead of building infrastructure, the Hamas used funds to build military hideouts and the underground tunnel network, which spans hundreds of kilometers. They turned massive swaths of civilian infrastructure into, quote, perhaps the most sophisticated terror stronghold in the world. Let's see what else. This was integrated, pre-planned, and abhorrent method of warfare. They use civilians as human shields. They fire at civilians in Israel. They said if Hamas would lay down its arms, the hostilities would end. Let's see what else. He said that the Palestinians claim 23,000 plus casualties. They said those statistics are unverified. So then Malcolm Shaw, who is an expert on genocide, and he's a lawyer, expert on genocide, human rights, and international law, he argued, and he said that genocide is only genocide if you can prove intent. And he said that South Africa compiled only a slew of random assertions, but surely not intent in light of the attacks of October 7th. He also said that the large part of their arguments were based on the comments by Israeli officials, different people in government, military officials, and he said that these were taken out of context. that it wasn't, the different calls, for instance, they had they different calls for that's could be interpreted as genocide, like burn them to the ground. Different things were either made by people who were not in the war cabinet, so they do not represent government uh, policy. And it's the government policy, it's the government that's on trial. So if it's not representing government policy, then it's not. What do you call it? It doesn't count as a what's the word? It doesn't count as genocide because it wasn't made by the government. They also pointed out that Israel is pursuing legal action against some of the people who made some statements. So these were the basis of their arguments. Now, another lawyer also said that as she pointed out, that Hamas's warfare methods were not mentioned, and that was a big part of that's a big part. You can't talk about Israel's response without talking about what prompted it. They said there's a lot of generalities that are in this argument, and she said you would think that this was a case, genocide case against Hamas. Considering what they did and what they set out to do. So anyway, those were the major arguments that went out today. Now I see Ohan has sent a question. Or maybe a comment? Let me see. Yes, I can see it. Okay. Why not put the prime minister into the justice court as the war master? And he was the one who funded and gave. Well, I mean, it was, yeah, you could say, but he is. I mean, I think it's the government is the ones who are in the court, and Israel, like he's the prime minister is the head of Israel, so he is the one essentially on trial. Now, is he on trial for funding Hamas? Not at the moment. So that's still debatable. Excuse Daniel in the background. Now, there was something else I wanted to tell you guys about that. So now Israel got to choose a judge, and they chose one of the 15 judges on the panel is Aaron Barak, who is the now recently besmirched former head of the Supreme Court. Sorry, as Daniel sings in the background. Do you guys hear that? That's so distracting. Anyway, so he was the head of the Supreme Court and the president of the Supreme Court for years. And it was during his time that the Supreme Court took on like this activist liberal character that it's being, accused of having today by the current government. Now, the current government wants to actually put checks and balances on the court. And this was actually the big topic that was going on in Israel for the months leading up to the war. As of, there was a protest planned for October 7th, as there was every single Saturday night since January of last year. So we're talking almost a year now. There have been weekly protests against the proposed judicial reform. And a lot of the blame was put on Aaron Barak. And in fact, Barak was totally against, he's retired now, but he was totally against the judicial reform that was being proposed. And there was a constant back and forth between, I don't want to say right and left wing in the Israeli government, because right and left is very loose. It's not as comparable to right and left wing in the U.S., for instance. But in general, right wing was against left wing. So he represented the left wing in this case. But I want to tell you about what actually will happen with this case. So first of all, the court doesn't really have any power. Now, this came about because the United Nations, thank you very much for your comment, Iman. I Umanim, I'm not sure, but I thank you very much. Yes, I will not apologize for him singing. At least he's singing, right? And I often say, total bunny trail here, but that speech therapy would be way more effective if it was song, because this kid can maybe not talk so well, but he can sing. And so anyway, but right now he's singing with headphones on. So thank you very much for your comment. That's awesome. Okay, so this came about because the United Nations has the Security Council has not passed an call for a ceasefire. South Africa has proposed a few resolutions to say, okay, there needs to be a ceasefire. The fighting in Israel needs to be stopped, and it hasn't gone through the Security Council. So, so in a way to bypass the fact that it keeps getting vetoed at the United Nations, they brought this case, but very quickly, because the war is just 3 months old. They brought this case very quickly to the International Court of Justice, which, by the way, is an extension of the United Nations. So Israel is a party to it, and also party to the Genocide Convention. So this is a way to get a different way. Now, the United Nations resolution, the Security Council resolution, hasn't worked in a way to say, okay, stop the fighting. So they're trying out the International Court of Justice. However, uh, it a ruling will not have any teeth. Um, there is also the International Criminal Court, and that has a little bit more. I think it can actually make arrests and put out warrants, but the ICJ is more political. So it seems like no matter what they say, it's not necessarily going to have an impact. So I'm just looking to see now. Yeah, of course, I would like to compare this. Now, the ICC, wait, let's say that. Yes, this was, so here's the example of the ICJ. There's the ICC, but we're dealing with the ICJ. And it has no enforcement power. Um, Now, you may remember, but you may not have heard, because most people haven't, that just over a year ago, from December of last year, Azerbaijan began a blockade of a portion of land called Nagorno-Karabakh. In this land, which had been disputed, um, were living 120,000 ethnic Armenians who had lived there. You know, it had been Armenian land. Armenians had lived there for centuries. But this land, and it goes back to the time of even the Soviet Union, and who gave it away, and who, the Soviet Union had all this land, and they decided to just divide it between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which had just become a state. But the people who lived there said, no, 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 we're Armenian, we're part of Armenia. So after the breakup of the Soviet Union, they said, we're part of Armenia, but Azerbaijan said, no, 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 you were given to us by Stalin. And there were disputes over Nagorno-Karabakh and the Nakhchivan province as well over there. Complicated history, but needless to say, war broke out several times over this plot of land. But in December of 2022, Azerbaijan blockaded that area and would not let in any aid, would not let people out, or they controlled the flow of aid and food in and out, but and they set up checkpoints. That went on, and then it was brought to the ICJ, and Azerbaijan was ordered to open it immediately. And instead of complying with the order, they doubled down. And in June of last year, they completely closed the corridor, and nobody was allowed in and out. They were slowly starving the people to death, which also raised calls of genocide. From particularly a former ICC prosecutor, Luis Moreno Campo. And he wrote, argued a long piece, but it didn't go anywhere, and nobody did anything. And then when after the population was completely depleted in September, just a few months ago, Azerbaijan began an invasion. They attacked, and the people fled and left to Armenia. Now, miraculously, people more weren't killed. In fact, I don't know of many from this case, maybe because it's not in the news. Maybe there were, but we don't know of any mass murders or mass killings. There were some, but 120,000 people, nearly 120,000 people, fled and were absorbed into Armenia, and Azerbaijan just rolled in and took over the land. So that dispute, so you can see that did absolutely nothing. Now I see another question is why South Africa is leading the charge. I know, like, why South Africa? Why not a closer country that doesn't like Israel? Like, why not Syria? Why not Lebanon? South Africa was, I believe, the one trying to get this done in the United Nations and couldn't, and so appealed here. Now, South Africa has always, like, they've been on this case since October 8th and have, said, like, they've been like defending the Palestinians since that time, and so they're the ones who decided to try to get this case into court. So let me see. I know it got quiet for a second. Even Daniel's not singing to entertain us. So ironically, all right, so nothing might happen from this, no matter what. And some people even say, like, so then why did Israel bother? Because I think they actually could have ignored and decided not to do anything about this, but they, I believe, wanted to defend themselves and in the court of public opinion, because as you can see, this issue, this war has polarized nations and created protests around the world. So anyway, so just in time for our singer to arrive. That's right, be quiet. Perfect timing, because that was the end of this. Really the end. So anyway, so I'm gonna sign out now. If you're watching this video and randomly, like, I don't know, whenever, check back. check the video from yesterday. I'll put a link to that. Because in that one I talk more in detail about South Africa's case. What are you watching? Oh, games. He's watching guys playing games. Zemi loves you. Owen loves you. Everybody's saying hi. So, can you hear me? No. And he's wearing Lucas's shirt. Like, this is the best. Like, this is Lucas. Okay, so go back and watch the first video. You see more about South Africa's case, which is in defense of Hamas. So by the way, so to answer why South Africa, but why not Hamas or the Palestinians? Because Hamas is an entity. Hi, Michelle. Oh, cool. Michelle says hi too. I don't know if he can hear me. Callie, Daniel, you are getting so many likes right now. Amazing. Okay, so the Palestinians cannot because they are not a state, and Hamas is an organization or an entity. Thank you, Lovella, as well. Lovella says hi too. Hamas is an entity and cannot. Now, Hamas is considered a terrorist organization by several countries, but not all countries. So, in any case, they cannot bring this case. So, South Africa did it on their behalf. But still, why South Africa? And if you speak with South Africans, it's interesting because there's a lot of South African Jews that live here in Israel. And, South Africa is generally, and South Africa is known for apartheid, right? and South Africa is generally pro-Palestinian, but there is a very strong pro-Israel community, both Christian and Jewish, that live there, and some that live here as well. And so I spoke with South African Jew who has made Aliyah to Israel, lives in Israel now, and immigrated here. And she said, you know, she's never been so ashamed of South Africa, and was horrified also by the hypocrisy of a country that cannot take care of its own citizens, and has a high crime rate, and actually has the nerve to come against Israel. Now, I'm sure, of course, obviously, she doesn't represent all South Africans. And, you know, it's just that obviously, since the case came from South Africa and they represent most South Africans, probably, but there are differing opinions coming out of there. Oh, so do you think Israel will give back Gaza or will stay in control? And what will happen to the displaced population? Thank you, Ohan. So crazy stories coming out. There was actually, maybe close to home for you, Ohan, there was talk of that Israel was somehow in connection in negotiation with the Congo to accept displaced Gazans who want to voluntarily go there. In the meantime, you know, while there has been a lot of rhetoric about moving the population out, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday, he just wants to reiterate that it is not the policy of Israel to move Palestinians out, to displace them. Now, of course, this could be, Daniel, this could be because this is like a circus. This could be because of the case. If you want to be cynical, like, did he say that just because the court case was today? But several ministers in the government have said that they should be displaced, they should be moved out, we should resettle the land with Jewish communities. But Netanyahu said yesterday that is not the official policy of Israel, and we are going to leave Gaza as soon as we have rooted out Hamas. Now, that is all that's being said, and what is actually going to happen, I cannot imagine. I do think that I think they're going to have to get in an international coalition to govern Gaza, because I cannot imagine that Israel can continue controlling the situation or being there, keeping their troops there. That's the whole reason they disengaged in 2005 anyway. And I also cannot imagine that they'll accept, that Israel will accept Hamas control in Gaza. I don't know if it's their choice. You can debate that, whether it's Israel's choice if they're going to, you know, who controls Gaza, if it's Hamas, or if it's the Palestinians' choice, or if you move Fatah, which is the other party which controls the West Bank, which is the head, you know, Fatah is the head party of the Palestinian Authority. So will they then be asked or moved there? And, you know, is that a powder keg situation, considering they were kicked out of Gaza in the 2007 elections when Hamas took over? Well, it was 2006, but Hamas took over in 2007, and basically essentially kicked out Fatah, and even like imprisoned and executed Fatah members at that time. So do you have a return of Fatah? Do you have a new party? Who's going to fund the party? Like Ohan was asking about who funded Hamas. So many questions, and I don't think that anybody knows. I can't speculate. I just can't imagine that anything less than an international coalition would be in there, because all the other parties are way too, I don't know how to describe it, involved, or, you know, they unbiased and will not be accepted. So that's that. Okay, so now I'm going to end it, but this was a great lively conversation and lively music. Too bad we can't hear the music. We just hear the singing. I wonder what he's listening to. So anyway, I'm going to end this now. I'm coming back live very soon for a piece on the Houthis. The Houthis. Yes, you need to know, because if you're in the US right now, you need to know that the US attacked the Houthis last night or early this morning here in Yemen. And so did Great Britain. And so why and what's going on? Okay, so I will be back soon for that. Of course, if you're watching this randomly later and you're like, what are you talking about? All right, so I'll leave a link. Anyway, so much fun, and I'll see you soon. Now I got to figure out how to close this thing. Well, you guys are with me. You're with me. Yes, it is very difficult to stay on a serious topic with our kids around. I know. Isn't that great? But it's hilarious. But it teaches you amazing things, doesn't it? There's a lot of things we're capable of that we didn't know of, like trying to stay on topic. I can't even hang up. Anyway, all right.